From all the BattleTech equipment that the clans brought to the innersphere, nothing is as uncanny and disturbing as the ProtoMechs. These are machines, somewhere between an armor and a vehicle, yet still neither of these. Sculptured after mythological creatures of mankind's past, they were the brainchild of the scientists owned by Clan Smoke Jaguar. Their glory days were quite short, from the late 3050s to the late 3070s, but they did not disappear afterwards and are prowling the battlefields of the IlKlan era, as long as one of the two remaining users is involved. Their history continues, a story filled with suffering, desperation, and ruthlessness. It is important to note that, unlike all other clan technologies, they were never used by the innersphere. After Operation Revival, also known as the clan invasion, the successor states lost no time to incorporate as much clan tech as they could into their armies. Several generals and rulers went to battle seated in a direwolf assault mech. Even mercenaries and pirates bolted clan weapons to the BattleMechs, and later the Easygram-class assault dropship became a staple of both Clan Wolf and the Lyran Commonwealth. And of course, we had the Battle Armor, a piece of kit that introduced a completely new type of unit to the sphere and was widely used even before the clans were defeated on Tukait. But the ProtoMechs were never used by the innersphere. Even research in this direction is extremely scarce and often aimed at utilizing ProtoMech technology for BattleMechs or battle armor. The ProtoMech stayed in Warmachine exclusive to the clans and only them. And if we look closer at them and their place in history, this is no surprise. Unlike BattleMechs, battle armor, aerospace fighters and warships, they are not a legacy of the Star League. They are the only genuine development that was made by the clans and for the clans. Its inception, development, rise and eventual fall are all linked to the culture, society and warfare of the Kerensky cluster. With it, we have a weapon that makes little sense outside of the clans. To find the answer, you can not see the ProtoMech in a vacuum, but you have to acknowledge its origins. You have to understand the clans to understand them, to fully grasp them as a concept and the motivations behind their creation. But before we do so, let us take a look at the official description. What is a ProtoMech? ProtoMechs are a type of combat unit developed by Clan Smoke Jaguar in the aftermath of the Battle of Tukait. These units were created to address resource shortages and to provide a more efficient means of delivering firepower to the battlefield. ProtoMechs are characterized by their smaller size, neural control system, and versatile weaponry. ProtoMechs typically stand between 4 to 6 meters tall and mass from 2 to 15 metric tons. Their compact size and fusion engines give them agility somewhere between infantry and mechs. ProtoMechs can even mount jump jets for enhanced maneuverability. One unique feature of ProtoMechs is the direct neural control system, which allows pilots to feel as though they are the machine itself. This provides unsurpassed control, but also forces pilots to feel pain when the ProtoMech is damaged. ProtoMechs can carry versatile weaponry, including a main gun, torso-mounted weapons, and arm-mounted weapons. Despite their advantages, ProtoMechs have limitations. They cannot use XL engines, endosteel or ferrofibrous armor. Additionally, they lack ejection systems and cannot dump ammunition in emergencies. ProtoMechs are also more vulnerable to extreme temperatures. The development history of the ProtoMech. Following the Battle of Tukait, Clan Smoke Jaguar faced resource challenges due to guerrilla uprisings and raids within their innersphere's occupation zone. Their worlds were running out of the necessary materials to produce BattleMechs, and a new solution was needed. Smoke Jaguar scientists devised a new battlefield unit that combined features of BattleMechs and elemental battle armor. These ProtoMechs would stand half the height of BattleMechs, only mass 10% as much, and use smaller engines. The goal was for a group of 5 ProtoMechs working together to be as efficient as a single BattleMech while using fewer resources. An influential scientist in the ProtoMech development, Serio Bulfinch, drew inspiration from ancient Terran mythology. He used the names of ancient monsters as codenames for various ProtoMech templates. The ProtoMech's designs were then infused with these mythological themes, with the hope that their fearsome appearance would intimidate their enemies and provide an advantage in battle. The clans initially tried to breed airspace pilots with enhanced senses and reaction times, plus resistance to high G-forces. But this effort did not work as intended. The results were warriors who were extremely small and thin, with larger heads and eyes due to the genetic modifications. Surprisingly, clan pilots turned out to be less skilled than their innersphere counterparts. Recognizing this, ProtoMech designers seized the opportunity to utilize failed aerospace pilots who had been demoted to lower castes. These pilots were repurposed for the ProtoMech project under the guise of testing new fighters, giving them another chance to serve a clan as warriors. ProtoMechs became practical due to a breakthrough technology called the Enhanced Imaging (EI) system created by clan scientists. This system enabled direct neural control, reducing the need for traditional cockpit space and other equipment, making room for weapons. However, adopting this technology came with a significant drawback. To use the EI system effectively, pilots needed extensive electronic implants surgically installed under their skin. Over time, they will take a toll on the pilot's nervous system, leading to issues like paranoia. In the worst cases, they could even cause death or a catatonic state. When operating a ProtoMech, the pilot experiences a unique connection with a machine. They essentially feel like the ProtoMech is an extension of their own body. It is as if they see the world through the ProtoMech sensors. When the pilots think of moving, the ProtoMech responds, and their physical body, tucked in a fetal position within the ProtoMech's chest, remains unconsciously to the commands. This connection provides exceptional control, but comes at a price. The physical strain is significant, and the bumpy movements of a typical ProtoMech during walking can be quite punishing. The pilot essentially becomes one with the machine, but this direct link also means they experience the pain the ProtoMech feels through neurological feedback. So, if the ProtoMech gets damaged, the pilot will feel as if they were happening to their own body. This can be a serious challenge in combat, even though ProtoMech pilots are trained to cope with it. This strong bond between the pilot and the machine can sometimes lead to overconfidence. Pilots might feel invincible and be hesitant to leave their ProtoMechs, even thinking of a machine as their own body. Fortunately, ProtoMech pilots typically work in teams, and their teammates can help control any problematic behavior. The ProtoMech saw first combat during the Battle of Huntress, where Clan Smoke Jaguar used them effectively despite their ultimate defeat. The technology drew the interest of the other clans, leading to raids on Huntress to acquire ProtoMech technology. Clan Coyote and Clan Blood Spirit were among the first to adopt ProtoMechs for themselves. In contrast, the innersphere showed little interest in developing ProtoMechs due to the need for EI interfaces and other technical challenges. The Word of Blake made some progress using their own technology, but soon abandoned the research. ProtoMechs have been a mixed legacy, with only 2 clans, Clan Hell's Horses and Clan Snow Raven, continuing to use them, while all others have moved away from the technology. ProtoMech, a misnomer. First, let us address the obvious. The name ProtoMech is a misnomer. Usually, proto means that something is a forerunner of something. You certainly know what a prototype is. A model, maybe even just a proof of concept, that precedes the production run. But evidently, ProtoMechs do not predate the BattleMech. The venerable Mechie was created in 2439, over 600 years before the first ProtoMech saw action. Instead of being a statement about their development history, the Proto is just a rather poor choice to signify that they are a lesser, weaker but cheaper cousin of a true BattleMech. As if mechs would grow and mature like humans do. And it is true that they are, if we ignore the EI interface, far simpler than the infamous Clan OmniMechs. Most of the high tech used to increase the combat capabilities of BattleMechs has no room on a ProtoMech. Their engines are very small and their weapons loadout severely limited. And also their weight lies under the cut-off line of 20 tons. Most models have a mass of 2 to 9 tons, and only in the last generation we will see ultra-heavy ProtoMechs ranging from 10 to 15 tons. Yet this simplicity is not a disadvantage. In fact, it is their main benefit and most important advantage. They were not supposed to surpass the BattleMechs. Instead, they were planned as a complement and chief alternative. A solution to problems that the clans themselves caused. ProtoMechs, the birth on Huntress. In the official history, it is claimed that Clan Smoke Jaguar created the ProtoMechs because the uprisings in the occupation zone forced them to overextend their resources, and they no longer had enough ores to manufacture new BattleMechs. This explanation sounds reasonable, but has several flaws. Every Mechwarrior knows how often salvage is used to repair or improve a mech, and even the scraps of a completely annihilated machine can be recycled and reused to forge a new one. A lack of ores is not a common problem when it comes to the production of mechs, especially not when the power in question controls vast amounts of territory, like the Clan Smoke Jaguar occupation zone. And even if that would have been the case, why did not the other clans face the same scarcity? The lack of ores does not seem likely as a reason for creating the ProtoMech. And there is also the problem with development time. Creating a completely new kind of weapon with trained warriors, logistical infrastructure and specialized tactics takes time. And it is often quoted that the scientists' cast worked for decades on the ProtoMech project. The Battle of Huntress happened in 3060, just 8 years after the Battle of Tukayit. So where exactly did Clan Smoke Jaguar hide the missing decades of development time? The truth is that the creation of a ProtoMech started long before there was even an occupation zone, long before Operation Revival, and long before the clans learned a lesson in innersphere warfare. No. The true reason for their construction has to be found in clan space, and the resource that was becoming scarce was not ore, but people. The militaries of the innersphere often have problems with shortages, lack of weapons, lack of ammunition, lack of supplies, lack of transportation. But one thing that needs a closer look is lack of manpower. You see, it almost always means that there is not enough trained personnel. Becoming a Mechwarrior, an officer or a specialist takes time. Even the drilling of basic soldiers will last for a few months. So if we encounter a manpower shortage in the innersphere, we know that someone wasted all their experts and now has to replace them. But that does not mean that there are not enough people around. No one of the successor states or periphery nations was ever shy to replace combat losses with substandard troops. Give mechs to a militia and you have a new BattleMech regiment. Allow some 14-year-olds to graduate early from their academy and they can gain some hands-on experience. Use conscription and a new wave of infantry is ready. There simply is no shortage of bodies to throw at the enemy. Every civilian can be turned into a soldier if need be. The clans do not have this possibility. When in 2807 Nicholas Kerensky started to create the clans, he had one goal in mind: to create the perfect warrior. And this is the core of every aspect of clan society. By breeding, training, competition and testing, optimize your warriors down to their very DNA. Just the very best are even allowed in the ranks of the warrior caste, and of those only precious few earn a blood right and the possibility to give their genetic legacy to a new generation of true-born warriors. This weeding out of so many candidates and the extreme competition between the warriors created a system that took class over mass to an extreme. And the other clan customs enforce this even more. The bidding down of assets before missions favors tiny elite formations. The duels and trials allow even single warriors to achieve triumphs that otherwise would need armies. And a high base strength means that even a small force multiplier is worthwhile. So you can spend huge amounts on small increases in combat performance. This tradition shows itself in the numbers. The appearance of the clans is dominated by the ruling elite, the warrior caste, but their numbers are few. As of 3062, there were around 150,000 clan warriors. This sounds like a big amount. However, it is only so if you use absolute numbers. If we take the percentage, we can see that only 0.01% of the clan's total population were warriors. There are completely peaceful worlds in the innersphere that have 100 times bigger percentages of soldiers, just for comparison. As a result, warriors are an extremely restricted resource for the clans that severely limits the scope of all their operations. Losses that a successor state would call moderate can take a clan out of action and delay all future campaigns for more than a decade. True, it is possible to increase the amount and size of zip codes, but maturing these to field-ready state takes at least 14 years, and they would make subpar warriors at that point. A full military training to clan standards will take about 2 decades, so this is no workable solution for a sudden problem with the manpower. And to leave the holy traditions of the clans by giving weapons to the civilian caste to bolster your number of combatants is an action that will be viewed as desgra by the other clans. It blurs the strict lines between warriors and civilians that define them and will not be tolerated. Clan Blood Spirit armed its civilians, and you can ask them how it went. Just do not wait for an answer. There is no one left to give it to you. At the end, the clans have to squeeze as much combat power out of their extremely limited numbers, because the number of adult warriors cannot be changed on short notice. However, these problems are affecting all clans. Why did only Clan Smoke Jaguar move towards creating the ProtoMech? Simply put, they had more attrition than anyone else. All other clans combined military campaigns with political moves. The era of clan history between the Golden Century and the invasion is called the Political Century for a reason. Far from being the pure warriors of Kerensky's dreams, the clans spent a lot of energy and care in maintaining and improving their position in the council chambers, far away from the battlefield. They would always use force as a tool, but only as one of many. If a beneficial outcome could be reached by trade, compromise, or backroom deals, they would do it. Not so Clan Smoke Jaguar. This clan took the dominance of the warrior caste to an almost absurd extreme. For them, attack was always the right and only answer. Your science is lacking, claim the technologies of your neighbor. Few resources, take them from someone else. No allies, crush your enemies in advance. It goes without saying that such behavior took its toll on the clan, especially the manpower. They had to come up with a solution that would allow them to use more of their cadets without violating the sacred traditions. As most will know, there are 3 distinct phenotypes of warriors in the clan breeding program. The most prestigious is, of course, the Mechwarrior, and they are the most influential type inside the warrior caste. Most famous clanners and the bulk of Khans and Sarkhans belongs in this group. Besides this, we have the easy-to-recognize elemental phenotype, huge and muscular brutes, genetically engineered to be battle armor infantry, and a resounding success in this endeavor. Yet there's also the 3rd phenotype, the aerospace fighter pilot. These warriors are the most bizarre to look at. Bred for small frames, light weight, and fast reflexes, they have a very small stature and unsettling big heads with oversized eyes. And sadly, they have to be regarded as a failure. When the clan invasion started, the spheroid forces on the planets could be swept away with ease. But in the sky and space, the aerospace fighters of the clans struggled. Despite their advanced technology, they had so much trouble to prevail against the local space assets that the verdict after the conflict was in unison. The innersphere had the better pilots. To be fair, the clan way of warfare did little to prepare the aerospace fighter pilots. The focus on ground forces made them a neglected addition. If it comes to a trial between clans, it is common to offer SAFCON, the unopposed travel and landing on the site of battle. This deprives the fighter pilots of an important purpose. They are still around because common does not mean always, yet their chances to face true combat are limited. Therefore, clans have to maintain their air force without getting much use out of them. An unpleasant burden for the waste-hating clanners. The ProtoMech, with its small cockpit, was a perfect solution for this situation. By utilizing pilots as part of the ground forces, their creation was less wasteful for the overall clan, and the manpower shortage could be alleviated. The ProtoMech were later used by all clans, and not only by Smoke Jaguar. How did this happen? As already mentioned, the reasons that brought Clan Smoke Jaguar to the creation of a ProtoMech were always present among the other clans. They had less need to develop something like it, but using the already tested technologies for their own end was quite sensible. And we should also not ignore the huge repercussions that Operation Revival had. We are used to lament how the invasion changed the innersphere, but the changes on the clan homeworlds were just as great. First, the clans that had joined the invasion now had their occupation zones. What looks like a blessing had a second edge. While it was now possible to use the production capacity and raw materials of these territories to improve their own forces, the worlds in question had to be garrisoned. And the complete two-man now was split between the original holdings in the Kerensky cluster and the sphere, a situation that paradoxically weakened the clans and became a huge burden on their manpower. Second, there was a wave of resources coming from the innersphere to the clan worlds. However, they were unevenly distributed among clans. While some were able to get quite rich, Clan Diamond Shark and Clan Snow Raven come to mind, others became destitute. Foremost Clan Blood Spirit and Clan Coyote are here to mention. Both would willingly embrace the ProtoMech as a new addition to their two-men. This became worse when the availability of undefended enclaves after the fall of Clan Smoke Jaguar in 3060 triggered the Wars of Possession, resulting in an escalating series of trials and a shift towards a more destructive mindset among clan warriors. Under these circumstances, the cheap and simple nature of the ProtoMech made it a true alternative for every two-man. At this point, it makes sense to look at the different types of ProtoMech that were developed. Usually, their history is separated in 3 generations. The first generation are those ProtoMechs that were directly produced by Clan Smoke Jaguar or used exclusively data and blueprints captured from them. These were all rather small and primitive models. The first of them was the Harpy ProtoMech, more a proof of concept than a useful war machine. Other types are the Inurus, Siren, Satire, Centaur, Hydra, Rock, Gorgon, and Minotaur. These models became the very foundation of all existing ProtoMech forces and their future developments. Several of the more successful ProtoMechs, like the Minotaur and the Rock, were constantly upgraded and refitted to keep up with more modern threats. The second generation is made up by ProtoMechs that were designed by other clans, independent from the preliminary ideas of Clan Smoke Jaguar. As a result, these ProtoMech were far more diverse than the first generation. They also strongly resemble the doctrines and spirit of their creators. While the old designs were used by almost all clans, the newer ones often stayed exclusive to their place of origin. We can see a notable tendency for all ProtoMechs to gain weight and to move closer to the light mechs in size and firepower. The tubes in question are the Cesarops, Orc, Procyon, Shrisaur, Basilisk, Triton, and Delphine. The third and last generation is called Later Designs. Here we can find all ProtoMechs that were developed after 3071, all the way to the present day. These are the technological most advanced ProtoMech, and they are dominated by 2 trends. In this generation, we can see the first 4-legged ProtoMechs. The Basilisk Quad and the Procyon Quad are redesigns of their 2-legged ancestors, while the Boggart was a completely independent creation. The Boggart was also part for the second big development, Ultra Heavy ProtoMech. For a long time, ProtoMechs were limited to 9 tons or less, but technological breakthroughs made it possible to increase their weight substantially, up to 15 tons, and quite close to the cutoff size for BattleMechs. Examples are, besides the Boggart, the Hobgoblin, the Sprite, and the Svart Alpha. The most modern ProtoMech is the Hippogriff, first fielded in 3110 by the Raven Alliance. Interestingly, it is the only last generation ProtoMech that is neither a quad nor an ultra heavy. Sadly, several of these machines are even more twisted and strange than their precursors, and their intended use was far more savage, despite their technological sophistication. These ProtoMech have a secret. They were not created for the clans. They were created for the society. To understand the third and last generation of ProtoMechs, we have to look at the history of the clans again. Especially, we have to uncover the secret that the society was. The society was a hidden group of clan scientists who resented the dominance of a warrior caste in clan culture. They believed in science above all else and worked in secret, often disregarding clan laws and ethics. They saw Nicholas Karinsky's visions as aligned with science, and they plotted to overthrow the warrior caste. The society's origins are shrouded in secrecy, but they likely began within Clan Coyote's scientist castes. Evidence of their existence only emerged after Operation Revival, when genetic experimentation across clan lines came to light. The Jade Falcon clan uncovered illegal genetic material trading between clans, which hinted at a wider conspiracy. We have to know that the Society thrived among Jade Falcons, taking advantage of their more lenient policies towards scientists. To maintain secrecy, they pretended to work on tasks assigned by the warrior councils, but they secretly hindered warrior projects and continued their own experiments. These experiments included genetic manipulation, trading blood names across clan lines, developing secret weapons, creating computer viruses, and researching advanced gene therapy, all to supplant the warriors as the clan leaders. Representation in the society varied among clans. Some with more tolerant views towards scientists had significant society influence, while others with strict warrior control had less. During Operation Revival, the warriors were distracted, giving the society more freedom to spread their influence, even in the inner sphere. The Bloody IlKhan and the Wars of Reaving. The Wars of Reaving were a significant conflict that began in 3071. It was triggered when IlKhan, Brett Andrews, aimed to eliminate what he saw as innersphere taint from the clans. He employed trials of Reaving to cleanse those clans that had established innersphere occupation zones. Clan Borok attempted to resurrect itself during this turmoil. Meanwhile, the invading clans that still held territory in clan space were forced to withdraw and to abandon their enclaves and personnel. Clan Hell's Horses successfully established itself among these ranks, along with Clan Snow Raven, when it migrated to the Old World's alliance. However, Clan Ice Halien's attempt to create its innersphere zone ended in failure. The Society's plans fell apart after IlKhan Brett Andrews issued the Decree of Reaving, undermining the scientists' control. This triggered the Society into action, who had secretly developed weapons and formed alliances with the Bandit Caste and Clan Coyote. They also used a virus to disrupt HBG communications, plunging the clan homeworlds into chaos. This period of confusion resulted in widespread fighting across clan space. Clan worlds, once interconnected, were forced to fend for themselves, resulting in widespread death and anarchy. Clans fiercely attacked their neighbors for resources, and civilian caste members often violated clan law by fighting against invading warriors. Bandits and society members worsened the situation by raiding and taking slaves. But the Society not only wreaked havoc on the clan homeworlds. In their campaigns of causing chaos, disrupting communications, and conducting twisted experiments, like creating plagues that ravaged whole planetary populations, they even reached the inner sphere. In the end, the Society failed to overthrow the warrior caste. After the warriors recognized the threat, they systematically hunted down and eliminated Society cells and clan territories. The scientist caste of many clans were decimated in this purge. By 3075, order was restored in the clan homeworlds. The Society's rebellion was crushed. Clan Borok and their collaborators were eliminated. Clan Ice Halien's remnants were absorbed by Clan Goliath's Scorpion, and Clan Fire Manuel had disintegrated. Clan Hell's Horses in the homeworlds was absorbed by Clan Star Adder, and the Clan Steel Viper was declared tainted and annihilated. The Wars of Reaving caused significant destruction and division among the clans. Territories were disrupted, clans were annihilated or abjured, and deep divisions arose. Following these events, the clans in the sphere and the clans on the homeworlds cut all contact with each other, leading to the complete isolation of the clan homeworlds from the innersphere. Right from the beginning, the Society aimed to work with ProtoMech technology. This tech was quite new, unlike their BattleMech work, which had centuries of research behind it. ProtoMechs were a big surprise when Clan Smoke Jaguar unveiled them during the Star League's attack on Huntress, so the Society got interested in this new technology and managed to obtain several ProtoMech models for research. ProtoMech facilities were easier to hide because they were smaller than BattleMech or OmniMech factories. The Society produced more ProtoMech designs than BattleMech designs for this reason. They also turned freeborn individuals into ProtoMech pilots, which made sense given their limited resources. One notable effort was led by Clan Jade Falcon Scientist General Etienne, who convinced the clan to stop the program. The Society cell led by Etienne then relocated the experiments to a periphery world, making it look like they were disposing of old tech. This allowed the Society to benefit from Etienne's research. Despite their covert and often haphazard production, the Society's ProtoMechs should not be underestimated. Their prime developments were the Basilisk Quad, the Hobgoblin, the Bogart, and the Sprite. These models can still be found on the battlefields, but the unclan-like way of their equipment and the tactics created a negative perception of these designs and what they represented. The clans only use them because their military infrastructure is severely damaged. Whenever they will be further developed for future use or forgotten remains to be seen. The ProtoMech technology has remained exclusive to the clans. The closest the innersphere came was the Word of Blake's Machina Domini project, which tried to mimic ProtoMech control systems, but would not achieve the same compactness. ProtoMech production in the clan-held innersphere territories has decreased. Some clans, like the Clan Jade Falcon, Clan Wolf, Clan Goliath Scorpion, and Clan Ghostbear, have stopped using ProtoMechs entirely, preferring heavier BattleMechs. This reduced production was linked to the chaos that spread through the clans during the Wars of Reaving, which remained hidden from the successor states. But there was also another reason. These clans had used their position in the sphere to consolidate. By 3071, they had enough time to graduate the zip codes needed to adjust to the new manpower requirements, and the population was subjugated enough to effectively exploit the full might of the conquered industries. We can say that IlKhan Brett Andrews was right. The innersphere clans were truly tainted by the sphere and moved away from the old ways of the clans, behaving more than the nations surrounding them, for good or ill. The upheaval among the clans was also reflected in the latest ProtoMech developments, beyond just the reduced numbers. Since the innersphere clans lost access to their homeworlds, the ones still using ProtoMechs have begun producing designs with simpler surface features. These newer ProtoMechs look less alien and monstrous compared to their earlier versions, taking on appearances closer to the bigger BattleMech relatives. But it is interesting to note that the servered connections to the Kerensky cluster were not as complete as it seems. Many of the technological breakthroughs of the Society made its way to them. They have also managed to build larger ProtoMechs, including quadrupeds and gliders. As a result, today's ProtoMechs have more capabilities and can be surprising in combat. In the ilclan era, only 2 clans are known to use ProtoMechs. Clan Hell's Horses makes use of several heavy models, like the Orc and its latest creation, the Svart Alpha. This ultra-heavy ProtoMech is better armored and armed than some mechs, while also being able to use glide wings for fast movement. When it was first used, the observers believed it to be a new kind of land-air battlemech, LAM. In the Tumen of Clan Hell's Horses, the ProtoMechs are an addition besides their usual combined arms formations. But today, the widest variety of ProtoMechs is fielded by Clan Raven. The Navy clan always had to rely on airspace fighters far more than their Earthborn cousins, giving them a far greater pool of potential ProtoMech pilots. Combined with the fact that their home in the sphere is the poor, deindustrialized and resource-stripped former Outwards Alliance, no Raven Alliance, made the adoption of ProtoMechs a natural and quite sensible move. It is also Clan Raven that developed the youngest ProtoMech, the Hippogriff, first fielded in 3.110. As it seems, these are the last holdouts of a weapon that, like no other, represented the clan way of warfare and society. In all other parts of the innersphere and periphery, they are neither fielded nor produced. Relics of a gone age.